Welcome back to a critical Let's Play of Super Mario 64. Last time I talked a bit about a few of the design decisions that went into making the very beginning of the game as engaging and play-focused as possible. This time I'm going to be exploring some of how Mario 64 approaches establishing its narrative and familiarizing the player with the basics of Mario's movement system. Now, I said in the previous video that we're going to talk a little bit about a very interesting design decision, that went into the menu screen. If you hit the A button, the little gloved Mario hand cursor pinches like it's grabbing. Now you would think, possibly, if you hit the B button, we would navigate out of this menu and go back to the previous screen. But in fact, that's not the case. If you hit the B button, the exact same thing happens as when you hit the A button. Now, is this just done for simplicity's sake? Well, that's possible. But I also think it was a conscious design decision to prevent players from accidentally getting stuck moving back and forth between the very beginning of the game and not actually moving on to the proper main game itself. So with that said, let's hit the file and start talking a little bit about the narrative. So the game begins with a fairly short cutscene that sets up an interesting little bait and switch that gets slightly spoiled, but we can talk about that later. What's really great about this cutscene is how it establishes not only our principal characters, but also the setting, all of which it does so in a way that's very conducive to establishing the context of the play itself. We get a couple of images of Princess Peach letting us know where we're going and how these characters and this place is related to each other. We get the little warp pipe as a nice callback, and the music comes to a final crescendo, and Mario jumps out. And here at the top left, we've got our first text box putting forward some tutorial text explaining where we are, how to do a few particular basic actions, and what we're supposed to do. Now, as you can see, you can read this, or we can just blaze right through it, and there's no confirmation whether or not you read it or not. Now, here at the main tutorial space for the game, the thing that really stands out to me, and the thing that I really want to highlight, is the way that Mario 64 accommodates multiple different learning styles. Not only are there these various signs that you can read that explain how to do different moves, you can just walk around the area and press the different buttons in different combinations with each other and get a sense of how everything feels and fits together and how Mario moves and in what different ways he can move as you do so. Also, and I'll just move back here so you can really highlight this. This is right around where Mario pops out when you start. So we can see Mario is facing forward. This is the direction he was when he was facing when he jumped out of the pipe. In the transition from 2D to 3D, the amount of directions that a character can face have grown significantly. And over the course of the game, we will see that Mario is almost always facing exactly in the direction that he needs to be to let the player know where to go. Now, compared to the tutorial at the very, very beginning with Mario's head, there's a certain extra level of abstraction being put here. We're not looking directly at the object we're supposed to be interacting with. We're looking at Mario as the subject we're supposed to be identifying with, at least in a mechanical sense. So in this respect, why don't we, you could ask, well, okay, we already have a little tutorial at the beginning. Why do we have another tutorial? Well, I think this is all here to accommodate some players getting some greater familiarity and competence with that idea. That really affects how we'll talk about the camera in a minute, but first I wanted to talk about the fact that to that end, we have another zero pressure no stakes, very player-directed tutorial area that also establishes a really great virtue of the game, which is encouraging player choices through the non-linearity of the direction that you're allowed to move in. If we're supposed to run up to the castle, well, we can run up this nice green grassy hill here and get some interesting experience and information about, well, how high can Mario run? How tall of a hill can he just run up on his own? Or if we were to turn around and try to walk up, what's up here? Maybe I can tall these. Oh no, I can't climb these nice big green hills here. If he does that, he loses his footing and he slides down. So there is a tremendous amount of information that is being conveyed through non-text means. And the last major thing I wanted to talk about with this video, with the movement system that Mario has, is that all of the game's main movements, I think all of his movements actually, with the exception of flying, with one exception, Mario is able to perform from the get-go. Now, why is this? Well, again, partly I think it's to accommodate multiple different learning styles for players, but I also think that it's there to engage the player first and foremost. If Mario's movement system wasn't as interesting, or if it was gated, if you had to learn different techniques from a different character or by accomplishing little tasks around this area, obviously I think it would feel far too much like busy work, and it would absolutely slow down the pace of the play. And it would interfere with the game's main play aesthetic of discovery, and just how multifaceted that is over the course of the game. Now, Mario's movement system itself, there's a few things I would want to critique here. I think that there are a handful of moves that are kind of unnecessary over the course of the game. I'm just going to show off one here. How often when you're playing Mario 64 have you done this? I've actually used it a few times, or that one, that sliding kick. I think that there are a handful of moves in there that are sort of there just to be discovered, or just to take up space, or potentially allow for some creativity or some personal kind of style in how you prefer to play the game, which is good. But I also think that it's a little bit of overkill. Most of Mario's basic movements chain together and flow in a really effective and beautiful stream of elegant motion that is really indicative of which moves you're probably going to end up spending most of the game using over the course of your play. Things like that, and the different jumps I was doing there, as you can see. So that's what I'm gonna call it for this video. In the next video, we're gonna talk a little bit more about some of the art theory ideas that I think are going on with Mario 64 that are being strongly communicated in this tutorial space. The main ones being realism and the concept of sticky friction.